He just didn't have bullets that were accurate enough for what he was doing. And so the whole reason that Hornady became a bullet company was the pursuit of precision. Because, you show up to the racetrack to test drive the car. Well, a lot of people aren't talking about the Sunoco 110 race fuel that's in the car, but it still needs the
Right.
fuel and,
Yeah.
and ammo in a large, way is just like that, oh yeah, that was cool. The suppressor, the gun, everything ran.
None of that works without the bullet.
But yeah, you got to have the fuel in there.
You are the voice of the Hornady podcast. For those of our listeners that may not have caught that or aren't up to date on all that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you do at Hornady?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my name is Seth Swerczek. I've been at Hornady for about 13 years now, and my current role is the communications manager. So in a nutshell, that's any endemic or non-endemic communication, largely with the outdoor journalism, some YouTube stuff. And along with that, I also host the Hornady podcast, which we started here. I think we're coming up on year 5, right as I transitioned from working in ballistics here at Hornady over to marketing. Some of the other marketing guys and I, really wanted to launch a podcast, and we didn't get a yes, we got a okay. And it really grew to be one of the better marketing tools that we have. So currently, like I said, I work with the editorial staff at large throughout the world, and then host the Hornady podcast, among a bunch of other things. It's a small family-owned company here at Hornady, so we all wear a lot of hats, but it's been a good run, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
Heck yeah. And I see that tattoo, the Semper Fidelis Marine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Best time of my life. Do it again tomorrow if I could.
That every Marine says that. They're like, best time of my life.
Yeah, there was
That's
a lot
beautiful.
of there's a lot of ways to say it, and everybody else has said it. But yeah, you miss the monkeys, not the circus kind of deal. But it was it was a good time to be alive.
Amazing. Well, Seth, when shooters typically think of Hornady, most of us can think of precision ammunition. So what does precision actually mean to Hornady?
Well, it's really one of the cornerstones of our company, and the definition of precision has certainly changed over the years. But you go back, you rewind the clocks to 1949. That's when Joyce Hornady, when he founded this company. And years prior to that, Joyce was a competitive pistol shooter. He was a varmint hunter. And in post-World War II, he just didn't have bullets that were accurate enough for what he was doing. He was missing targets like prairie dogs at long range, not because his rifle was inaccurate, not because he was a bad shooter. It's simply the products available weren't good enough. And so the whole reason that Hornady became a bullet company was the pursuit of precision. So Joyce Hornady was looking for 10 bullets through one hole, and he knew he could make a bullet that was more accurate and more consistently accurate than what was commercially available. And he set out and he did that. And so back then, they were looking for varmint accuracy, 100, 200, 300 yards on, say a prairie dog. But then that was 1949, 50. And then you start getting into more competitive shooting in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And the definition of precision changed. And then you get into the 2000s, the late 2000s, where you have the precision rifle sport starting to gain popularity. And so although the word precision has evolved and now people are demanding unrealistic precision at unrealistic ranges, your people are, there's guys out there shooting 2,000, 3,000 yards, and we've got a product that can service that market. So it really is the cornerstone of what Hornady was built on. There has to be a better way to make a more accurate product for competitive shooters and hunters alike. So it's in every breath that Hornady takes. And first and foremost, we're a bullet company. Everything we do starts and ends with the projectile. And precision is what we do.
So we were just talking offline, or maybe it got caught in the beginning. I'm not quite sure. But we're talking about, kind of like we watch a race car event, and everybody talks about the car and everybody talks about the driver, and you don't hear them talking about the race fuel that it took to power that car. Uh, so buyers of ammunition, what is the difference that they're going to see in your fuel versus a mass produced regular, 80 88 out the pump type of fuel?
Yeah. Well, there's different reasons to use different fuel, and there's a lot of competitors in the space that make really good fuel. There is, it's a manufacturing wise, most companies got it pretty dialed in, but there's some things that you just don't get with every brand of ammunition or every line in the competitors, lineup. And with Hornady, what you get is number one, I didn't understand this until I got a little bit older and, had been here a while. But being a small and family owned company, that really does mean something. When you've got employees that are building the bullets, making the ammunition, testing the ammunition, they're doing it because they're users of the product themselves. And so
Mm.
you get it's hard to quantify, but the people actually building the product, when they actually use the product, I can guarantee you they're going to make a better product. There's just no way around it because they
Yeah.
are personally invested in the outcome of the product because they compete, they hunt. And so you get that small family owned kind of thing where everybody wants to be successful here and everybody comes to work with their nose to the stone, butt in the air, ready to get after it. And so you get that. You also get uh, our ballistics team is one of the best in the industry. Internally, we have a team called the Ballistics Development Group, which is a combination of mainly degreed engineers, our ballistic engineers, and then some other marketing goons like myself and a few others uh, that really use this product and they understand what the goal is deeply. And so when you buy a product, it's not just a bullet with a powder, with a primer and a case. Every one of those components was selected purposefully to work synergistically with the other one. So there are similar powders that you could choose, but if these are the primers that you have to select the right powder to work with that primer. And that's going to help with ignition consistency and accuracy and velocity spreads. And then one of the last things that I don't think a lot of people fully understand that you and I were talking about is that Hornady's ammo is hand inspected. So a lot of manufacturers, they make good quality ammo, they run it off the press and it gets packaged right off the machine or in bulk quantities. Well, with Hornady, when you buy a box of Hornady ammo, a human being picked up that round, looked at it under a bright light, looked for dings, dents, scratches, oil stains, folds, made sure the primer was seated correctly, made sure the head stamp matches the ammo that it's going into. They looked at it and said, this is good enough for our customer, and they physically put it in the box. So that
Mm.
last step, that hand inspection, really means a lot. And when you take a competitor's product and our product and you pull them both out of the box, you'll see the difference. And then you'll also be able to shoot the difference. You'll be able to see it on paper with the consistency.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Seth, I think that brings us to our Ask AI segment. And during this segment, we're going to ask AI who Hornady Manufacturing is.
Okay.
And I'm going to read you a quick little bio on it at the end. You know, we're interested in your commentary and if there's anything you want to add. So this week, our Ask AI segment is brought to us by our friends over at Wheeler Tools. Don't forget to use code Whiskey10 at checkout. That's a sound done right. Scope rings, mounts, handguards, locked in with exact torque. Wheeler Fat Sticks don't guess, they deliver. Every click means you're dialed, not overdone. No strip threads, no compromise, just precision. Wheeler Fat Sticks. Hear the click, trust the build. So when we asked AI who Hornady Manufacturing was, here's what they said. Hornady Manufacturing is a family-owned American ammunition and reloading company founded in 1949 by Joyce Hornady and headquartered in Grand Island, Nebraska. Built on a relentless focus of accuracy, consistency, and ballistic innovation, Hornady has played a major role in advancing modern ammunition designs for hunters, competitive shooters, law enforcement, and defense professionals. The company is known for pioneering new bullet technologies and cartridges while maintaining in-house manufacturing control from projectile to finished round. Today, Hornady remains a leader in precision ammunition and reloading equipment, continuing its legacy of American-made performance. I asked what what are the most popular products Hornady makes, and it says that you guys are most known for the ELD match and ELDX ammunition, critical defense and critical duty, 6.5 and 6mm ARC cartridges, lock and load reloading presses and dies, and interlock and VMAX bullets. So what's your thoughts on that?
AI is scary. That's proof of that, because they pretty well nailed it. The only thing I heard in there was we don't have a 6.5 ARC. It was probably confused by that and 6.5 Creedmoor, which is one of our most notable products. But man, I would say it really nailed it.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
It does a pretty solid job. I will say it left off Lever Evolution, which has always been my favorite Hornady product. So
Go.
yeah, check yourself, AI. Let's touch on that though, Seth, because right off the bat, it mentioned the ELD match and the ELDX X lines.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how that has changed long range shooting. What you guys were trying to solve when you brought those to market.
Well, it changed it in a couple of ways. One, it changed how you get your solution, which we'll talk about, but it also changed what you can come to expect from bullet performance. It really did. So the whole story was Jason Hornady, who's our VP, passionate shooter. He's a competitor, hyper competitive in everything he does, and he's a hunter. And so he was on a hunt, and there were some other hunters unrelated to Jason's trip that were sharing camp there, and they were taking really extended range shots on animals and not getting the bullet performance that rendered a quick ethical kill on the animal. Now, they were using a competitor product that was popular for hunting at the time, and Jason came back and basically said, whether or not we agree with how far they're shooting, they're still going to shoot it, right? So let's build a product that can better service that market, because they're doing it anyway. So that was the rule. Find a projectile that would work at all ranges. It's got to be able to quickly and ethically kill an animal at 100 yards, but people are pushing these things to extreme distances and extreme time of flights. So it's got to expand at low velocity as well, and it has to be match accurate. So it's a tall order. And so that was back in 2013-14 timeframe. And our ballistic engineers came through and they found they found it. Okay, we got a bullet that it's got our interlock ring, it's got a tapered jacket, it's got the right lead in there, got the right shape, so it's match accurate, hits hard, and it's going to expand at all these ranges. We're done. This is great. So they were doing BC testing, because BCs were how largely everybody was getting their trajectory information, which we'll get into here in a moment. And at that point, we had a Doppler radar. So our former senior ballistic scientist, Dave Emery, got this Doppler radar and knew how to use it. And we were measuring ballistic coefficients, but we were getting weird results. The CD versus Mach, which is the drag coefficient against, versus the Mach value. The CD versus Mach curves were looking kind of strange. They had instead of being concave on the rise, they would get slightly convex and then go back to concave. And it was really puzzling. Well, what they found was the polymer tips that everybody who has a polymer tip was using would, if it had the bullet had a high enough BC and was launched at a high enough muzzle velocity, it would reach a point where it would start to deform. The oncoming air pressure would actually deform the tip, and it would change the drag. And we discovered that, and were able to find a more heat-resistant polymer to use. And so now you didn't have to face that, because what that would do is if you have a changing drag, throughout the trajectory, you're going to get, because it doesn't change the same way twice, you're going to get bigger groups at longer ranges.
Yeah.
The bullet can be really accurate at 100 and 200, but when you start pushing 4, 5, 6, 700, the groups would get bigger. And there's no way to control that. So we found this heat-resistant polymer, and that became the ELDX bullet. If you're going to have a hunting bullet with that technology, you got to have a match bullet. So that became the ELD match. That was really revolutionary for us and for the industry because we discovered something that wasn't commonly known. And so we fixed that. What that also did, though, was led into our Fordoff ballistics program. So prior to that, everyone used BC to get a trajectory solution. Now this is, it gets really technical really quickly, so I won't bore your listeners with, the whole story, but needless to say, we have launched a ballistics program that does not use BC. It uses the true drag coefficient of your actual projectile that you're shooting. And it also pairs that with the exact physical model of your bullet. So it gives you the most accurate trajectory solutions out there, period. No questions asked. And I'm not saying that because it's our product. I'm saying it because scientifically, you cannot get better information than that to run into a ballistics calculator. So it really opened up a lot of doors for long range precision, for some extended range hunting, and then also for getting good solutions. In the world of ballistic calculators, the common saying was good data in, good data out. Well, when you're running a ballistic coefficient program, it doesn't know enough about your bullet. So you can put all the good data you think you have in and get a solution that says dial to 10 mils. Well, if you missed by 0.3 of a mil, that number didn't matter because it was wrong. And so, you put all the good data in that you had, but you still got the wrong answer. So with drag coefficient and physical modeled bullets in the Fordoff, it's a thing of the past now. So like I said, that was a long answer, but that was pivotal. Hornady really transitioned in that time frame from, being predominantly a bullet company. Yes, we had ammo, we had some lever evolution and critical defense, critical duty, but that product line, the ELDX, ELD match, and then Fordoff opened us up to now we were a force to be reckoned with in the long range precision game.
Yeah, and just a high level answer on when you look at the difference between the ELDX and the ELD match. What do shooters benefit from the most with ELDX versus ELD match?
So the ELDX just stands for expanding. And what the shooter's going to benefit from in the X world, in the expanding world, is more consistent, reliable, and predictable terminal performance. So high level, an ELD match bullet is match. It is built for shooting targets. And the jacket is really thin from the bottom all the way up to the top. That jacket is really thin. And on the ELDX, the jacket is tapered. So it's really thick at the bottom. And it gets progressively thinner the closer it gets to the tip of the bullet. And then it also has our interlock ring, which is a ring inside the jacket of the bullet that is gouged into the lead to help hold the lead in. And that helps with reliable, predictable, and consistent terminal performance. With the ELD match, it is very similar to a varmint bullet, where there's no mechanism to control the expansion. And so the ELDX, they're both match accurate. They're both low drag bullet designs. They're both going to work really, really well for long range shooting. But the X is what we recommend for hunting because of the jacket design.
Awesome. So, Seth, just a little bit to change gears, because all of this, we mentioned how each cartridge in a box is hand selected. After it passes all QC checks, the final check is human intervention. But what is the QC process for consistency and accuracy from batch to batch?
Sure. From batch to batch, it can be a little tough depending on what not the season, what the current state of the industry is, because we really like to spec a certain load with a certain propellant and then use that same propellant every time we make that ammo. And there's been times here in the recent past, there's a worldwide nitroglycerin shortage, or not nitroglycerin, excuse me, nitrocellulose shortage. So that has created some problems in the volume of propellant that we're able to get. And that's not Hornady, that's every ammo manufacturer.
Yeah.
So from lot to lot, we truly strive for consistency in the propellant that we select, but there are some things outside of that that we do, and a lot of it starts on the press itself. So on the press itself, you're going to have mechanical checks, say for like powder volume, primer seating depth, stuff like that. You're going to have mechanical checks, and then you're going to have electronic checks on those mechanical checks. So there's a lot of redundancy so that we end up with a consistent volume of propellant, because that's going to do the lion's share of
Yeah.
consistent accuracy and velocity spreads. Then we have interval testing, where the ammo will go to the ballistics lab and get fired in a pressure and velocity barrel, and it will get shot for accuracy, pressure, and velocity at the same time. And it does that at intervals throughout its production run. So you start the run, the intervals throughout the run, and then to end the run before you can start the next one. So there's a lot of that kind of redundant testing that goes on. So we're able to catch problems, if there is any, catch them pretty early.
Okay, okay. So moving into, but well, I guess the question would be, before we move out of the ELD technology and get into defensive ammunition, is there any other product or any other bit of information you want to add to the ELD
Yeah,
lineup?
I think I would like to mention briefly the ATIP match bullet. That ELDX and ELD match is what we uncorked and really took off. There's so much you can learn with a Doppler radar. And what we discovered and learned throughout the ELDX evolution and the ELD match evolution turned out to be the ATIP match bullet, which is an aluminum tipped bullet. I mean, it is the best long range target bullet on the market, period. It is fantastic. One of the things we learned and implemented into the ATIP match bullet, now the ELDX and ELD match, is something called drag variability reduction technology. Now, this is a
Yo.
discovery that we made that didn't advance just Hornady. It advanced the study of external ballistics, because this really wasn't talked about in any of the literature very well. And even when you get into aeronautics and supersonic flight there, it's still not super known. But we were able to find a way to manipulate the shape of the tip of the bullet, the knee plat, such that the shot to shot to shot consistency would have less variability in the drag. So, in a nutshell, when you're shooting groups really far away, you will shoot a smaller group at longer ranges, because every shot and every shot after that one is close to the same. If you looked at like the shape of the tip, if you make it really, really pointy, that'll make drag variability worse. So it might be really efficient initially, but you'll shoot larger groups at longer ranges because it's more variable in the amount of drag that it has. And so that Doppler radar throughout the whole ELD evolution and into the ATIP, we were able to discover what we patented as drag variability reduction technology. And it's cool to be part of something that advanced not just our company, but the study of
industry.
ballistics as a whole. So that was pretty remarkable.
So,
Yeah.
Seth, I guess in layman's terms, for these cartridges, we have moved from a polymer tip to an aluminum tip.
For the ATIP bullet, yeah. And now ATIPs are available only in projectiles. You have to hand load them. They're not available in factory ammo. When we make an ATIP bullet and you buy 100 of them, you get bullets 1 through 100, never touched by a human hand. If you buy 1,000 of them in a sleeve, you get bullets 1 through 1,000 in order. Nobody else in the manufacturing space has been able to do that. And for the bench rest shooter or for the F-class shooter, having bullets 1 through 50, man, they are clones of each other. That's just another thing we do to really enhance the consistency.
But also, like, that gives you guys a really unique opportunity for feedback from the end user, because those are the types of guys that if they take the time to build that cartridge and they know each bullet is serialized, they have a logbook of what every single one of them has ever done
Oh,
in
yeah.
their gun, and they're going to tell you about it.
Oh, yeah.
I can assure you.
We've had
So,
great feedback. During initial
I
testing, we sent some out to some of our competitive shooters, and the first response we got back was, "I don't know what these are, but I need more."
Oh, I could believe that. I
Yeah.
could definitely believe that. So, moving into defensive ammunition, what drove the development of critical defense and critical duty ammo? I'm a guy that remembers growing up. My father was law enforcement, and I remember him carrying the Teflon coated. I remember lawmen's, and I remember all those things, and lots of those things are no longer available. But what drove the development of critical defense and critical duty?
So the development was really because Jason Hornady had just, he joined the company. So I won't bore you with the history, but Jason Hornady was a very successful sales rep for outdoor sporting companies unrelated to Hornady. So there's a rule. If you're a Hornady, you're not coming to work here. You got to go be successful on your own. And once you're successful on your own for 10 years, if you want to come back, you'll have to apply for a position when we have one. And so Jason was really successful, but there was a position that came open in the sales side. His kids were getting ready to start school. Him and his wife decided we're going to move back to Nebraska, and I'm going to, work for the family company. So when Jason came here as the sales director, he wanted an FBI contract. That was, that will solidify our brand and our pistol ammunition that the FBI trusts it. We need one of these contracts. At the time, jacketed hollow point style bullets were what everybody was using. And they're good bullets, but they have some deficiencies. And the FBI has a testing protocol that is really hard on bullets. So our senior ballistic scientist, Dave Emery, sat down with Jason. Jason said, go get me an FBI contract. And so what came from that was Dave Emery went into the lab and started experimenting with how can we make a bullet survive the barriers that the FBI shoots it through. One of the easiest barriers to defeat currently for critical duty and critical defense is heavy clothing, but that can be a horrible barrier for a regular jacketed hollow point. So the FBI barrier for heavy clothing is a cotton t-shirt, a cotton dress shirt, Polar Tech 200, and denim. Those are stacked over the gel block, and you have to shoot through those layers of clothing to go into the gel, and then they want it to penetrate a certain amount of inches, 12 to 18 inches. A jacketed hollow point will get clogged, won't expand at all, and will bore a hole deeper than 18 inches. So the first barrier was, okay, how do we fix that? So Dave tested many different elastomers and polymers to clog that tip to protect it from clogging, but then as a corollary, drove that bullet open to expand through all barriers. And so that pursuit became what we know as critical duty and critical defense. And critical duty, as it sits, is the highest scoring service ammo ever tested by the FBI. So it absolutely delivers in every capacity. And, we're on multiple FBI contracts now with critical duty. Now, that is a great bullet and a great ammo line, but for a citizen, where your common defense distance would be 7 yards maybe, and anything further than that, you might have a hard time claiming self-defense, or you're in a home and, you don't want to be penetrating walls and such like that. So the critical defense bullet, the geometry inside the bullet was changed slightly. We still held that same elastomer tip, and now we get reliable expansion through that heavy clothing barrier, but we don't get the risks of over penetration like you do with critical duty. And so critical defense, you had the Ruger LCP that came out right around that same time frame, 380s. Those little pocket pistols were really blowing up, and we had the perfect line of ammunition. It was really a perfect storm for us to have the 380 and the 9mm available as those micro pistols started to come on the scene. And now, it's trusted all over the country. If you're carrying a pistol, or if you got a pistol bedside, that critical defense is what you want in there. It's going to give you the most reliable terminal performance with the conscious lowering of the collateral damage risk by way of bullet design. So that's what really drove the technology. And like I said, critical defense is our number one selling item from all of our product line is 9mm critical defense. That's a number one selling item that Hornady manufactures. Like I said, we're already on multiple FBI contracts and all kind of other alphabet agency contracts for our critical duty. So that was the goal, and we pursued it relentlessly and did a really good job, I think.
100%. You can ask anybody like, "Oh, what's your EDC?" Like, "Oh, I'm carrying this and crit D's." Like,
Yeah,
if that's almost, it's become an industry standard at this point almost. Like, there's some other stuff out there and lots of good companies making pretty
right.
good stuff, but um the critical defense is almost the standard amongst EDC carriers from my experience. That's what's in my gun.
I like it. Mine too.
Yeah,
Um
I was gonna say, so what's the, or actually go ahead, Matt.
I was going to ask what are some of, because we're touching on that, you guys seem to have put the most amount of science into defense ammunition, personal defense ammunition. Like, what are some of the myths of defensive ammunition out there?
I think there's a long held belief that like you want deep penetration, and in recent years that's certainly been dispelled. I think largely thanks to YouTube, where people are
Mm.
testing stuff and maybe some non-traditional type of test mediums, water jugs and such, which doesn't necessarily give a good depiction of what a bullet's going to do. But I think that, there's that old school mentality of, the 9 millimeter expands, but the 45 doesn't shrink. And you don't want a big hard cast or a bit, an FMJ and a 45, or, there was the 40 and the 10 millimeter had their, time in the limelight. So I think those type of ideas are some of the biggest myths. Um, that, and then there's always, is it enough gun? Like, is the 380 big enough
I know.
for,
Yeah.
personal carry or something like that? And you got to find what works for you and what makes you feel good. But, I've never found a volunteer to jump in front of a 380. Uh,
Nope.
so I think having a bigger gun than necessary, bigger caliber, and maybe having a bullet that is slightly too much, if that, makes sense, could be some of those myths in the personal defense world.
So I guess that'll piggyback really into what I was gonna ask too, which is, when you have your everyday carry guys, people new to carrying a firearm and they want this for, defense of themselves and their families, what advice would you give them for picking the right load for their environment?
Sure. I would say this works in almost anything, hunting or whatever. The first thing what you want to do is educate yourself as best you can. Podcasts are probably the number one way I think to get information, certainly magazine and online articles. Ask people you trust. That's one of the you look back at all of our lives. I think there's a big point where seek knowledge from higher counsel is a thing.
Mm.
So, ask
Yes.
around, do your research. That's going to be the biggest thing is, I would also include in there, call the manufacturer of the product. Hornady, you can call us 800-338-3220, hit number 3, and you'll go to our tech department. There's 10 guys up there. They all hunt, they all shoot, they all reload, they all EDC carry. Most of them shoot competitively, and they are product experts, and they can help walk you through the understanding of what products are better for what scenarios. So, for a new person getting into the EDC type of world, if you default to critical defense, you're going to be just fine, and you probably won't ever need to change. Um, but just know, as your environment changes and where you're going and what you're doing, so should your EDC options, and that might include the type of pistol. That might include the ammunition. There's a lot of people that take their EDC urban carry pistol, and then they go on a backcountry hunting adventure, and they just want to carry the same pistol, which is fine. That might warrant an ammo change, right? Just because
Mhm.
maybe you do want something deeper penetrating. So I think the biggest recommendation I would have is do your best to educate yourself, seek wise counsel, and and really understand the envelope that a product was designed to work in, And then if you're going to be in that envelope, know that you're with the product. And again, to simplify it, if you just default to critical defense, you're going to be okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Your workspace matters, and the Tipton Best Gun Vise 360 doesn't play around. Built for serious shooters, this vise locks down rifles, shotguns, and ARs with zero movement and full control. Tool-free adjustments, rock-solid clamping, and a 360-degree rotating cradle give you access from every angle. No shortcuts, no compromises. Whether you're building, cleaning, or dialing in, this vise was made to keep up. Tipton Best Gun Vise 360. Built to hold, built to work.
Seth, let's jump into some cartridge innovation. 6.5 Creedmoor has kind of become a household name. What did Hornady see before the rest of the industry?
Well, that's a good question. I think we jokingly refer to as the Creedmoor as the overnight success that took 10 years because it didn't catch on right away. But what was really going on was senior ballistic scientist Dave Emery, talked a lot about Dave. He was a big Camp Perry shooter, service rifle, and there was a popular sport in that world called across the course shooting. And across the course, you had to shoot variable distances, variable positions, and some cartridges that were really gaining popularity were like the 6XC and the 6.5x47 Lapua. A couple people shooting the 260 Remington. And Dennis DeMille at Creedmoor Sports, Dave Emery, Joe Thielen, our assistant director of engineering, a handful of other folks, what they saw was we need to get a cartridge that's SAMI approved, that has the right chamber dimensions that will provide what most refer to as the horrible term, I hate to say it, but inherently accurate. So we got to get the right chamber dimensions and the right twist rate and the right case length to overall length. How much bullet is sticking out of the case? Because the 260 had the wrong twist rate and too long of a case for how long the bullets were. The 6.5x47 was not SAMI approved, couldn't buy ammo. Same thing with 6XC. Those were hand load only. So the goal was to get a match accurate cartridge that balanced high BC bullets, muzzle velocity, and recoil in such a way that you could get boxed ammo right off the shelf and go win a match with. And so that was what we were really after. And it took a little bit. It was kind of a slow burn. Initially, it was, a match cartridge. Then it quickly gained a big following in the hunting community. And now it is ubiquitous with precision. It really is. There's, all the love and the hate and the memes from the 6.5 Creedmoor only proves its popularity. And that's what we were going after was you could buy an affordable, economical rifle, or you could build a custom rifle. Doesn't matter. But if it was built to SAMI specs, you could buy factory ammo and it was going to pound knot holes. Because up until that point, for match shooting, you hand loaded. There was no serious competitor out there running box ammunition. That was, you might buy boxed ammunition to fire form brass, but it was a hand loading sport. Now, fast forward, we've got like Justin Watts down in Oklahoma. He shows up to a national level 2-day PRS match shooting Hornady match ammunition from the box in 6 Creedmoor. He's in the running to win that match, and he has done so several times. And that's with factory ammo. So that's what the pursuit was. And it took a little bit to catch on, but it delivered.
So there's all sorts of new cartridges out there, and when I say new, I mean within the year or two. Who we just talked about it offline a little bit, but who was 7mm PRC built for, and where do you see that filling a role today?
Yeah, well, the 7 PRC is near and dear to my heart, and you'll see this with a lot of our other new cartridges. The 7 PRC was born because me and a couple others here in the shop take a 7mm Remington Magnum, get a custom chamber reamer with the physical dimensions that are going to set it up for accuracy, get a faster than SAMI twist rate for the 7 mag, load bullets longer than the SAMI spec, and the SAMI spec for pressure on a 7 mag is 59,000 pounds. So we could run it up to 62 or 63,000 pounds. And you have an absolutely killer setup for hunting at any range. The most efficient bullets in the hunting world, super long, 7 millimeters, launched from a perfect test platform at a good velocity. Okay. Well, to get that, I had to order a custom reamer. I had to get a custom barrel. I had to get a custom twist rate, and I have to custom hand load. Well, how do I get that performance to everybody? Well, you design a cartridge to do that. So the 7 PRC is not much bigger or faster, if any, than the old 7 mag. But what it is refined. It's got the right overall length to case length ratio. It's not too overbore. It's got the right twist rate, and it's got the right chamber geometry. So again, buy any rifle you want. Buy the affordable rifle, buy the, super decked out custom rifle, buy the Seekins, whatever you want. Buy a good rifle that's made to SAMI spec, buy off the shelf ammo, and there's a bunch of manufacturers making it, not just Hornady now, and you have a turnkey solution for all range hunting with as far as you feel comfortable shooting. You have the bullets, you have the twist rate, you have the velocity, you have the consistency, and you have the accuracy with factory ammo and a factory rifle. And that's what the 7 PRC was designed to do. And it was really designed because the 7 millimeter world is more efficient than the 30 cal world, right? So if you look at big 30s, we're all a big fan of the 300 Win Mag and the 300 PRC, but those bullets, to get really efficient bullets, you have to get really heavy. And yeah, it increases the energy, but it also increases the recoil. So when you compare a 7 PRC to a 300 PRC, you're going to experience about a 30% reduction in recoil and a flatter trajectory and less wind drift. So it was really for elk-sized game on down out to, we recommend really not shooting further than about half a second time of flight. A lot can happen, if you get into a 1 second time of flight. But an all-range, accurate combination, that's what the 7 PRC was designed for.
Amazing. Yeah, and it's out there kicking butt. Like you can look up. There's videos all over YouTube about the 7 PRC, and it's quite the impressive chambering. And I think it's great that Hornady is. I mean, it sounds almost like you guys drew it up on a napkin, and now it has come to market, and it's much more efficient than the generation of 7 millimeters that came before it. That's not just changing ammunition, which traditionally we think Hornady is an ammunition company.
Right.
But that's changing the industry of how guns are, of how the receivers are made, how the barrels are made, the options that are available for hunters and for military contracts, like bringing really innovative stuff that has trickled down throughout the entire industry is that's really impactful. Really impactful. So Seth, in today's market, there's 338 ARC, 300 PRCs, others making their presence known. How do you guys decide when a new cartridge is necessary versus just making new stuff?
Yeah. Well, that can be tough. But largely when a new cartridge is necessary is when there is a problem that needs to be solved, and there's nothing that's commercially available where you can get a factory rifle and factory ammo, and when you put them together, solves the problem. So think about like the 300 PRC is very similar to the story of the 7 PRC. To get the level of performance from a 300 PRC, you had to build a custom 300 Win Mag. You had to custom load ammo. Okay, well, if the military comes to us and says, hey, we really want to engage targets out to this distance, what solution would you do? And we put everything through the ringer from 375 to 338, and we finally land on, hey, for the most consistency and the highest hit probability and the best shooting experience, man, a really big 30 cal is the way to go if that's the shot distances that you're looking at. Well, how do you want to launch that bullet? Well, you could do it through a 300 Win Mag, but that's got some problems. So let's create a cartridge that solves that problem. So we don't have to custom load anything. We just go get a box of ammo, and we could sell the military a box of ammo. And so for us, when it's time to introduce a new cartridge is when there is a problem that exists that there is not a turnkey solution for.
That makes sense. And well, people used to say this, but the limiting factor was the ammunition itself.
Mhm.
The modern platform can't advance much more until the ammunition changes. But it's being shown time and time again, slowly, but over the past decade, for sure. Bullet design is different. Pressures have just became astronomical, and now it seems like some of the limiting factors might actually, it's like playing the Uno reverse card, and now it's back on the guns.
Yep.
Because it's like, well, hey, if you want something and that's what you want it to do, oh, we can make something for you and it's going to be at this pressure and this velocity and this twist. But oh, hey, your current platform isn't set for that. So you need to go back to the drawing board. What are those? How do you work hand in hand with, I guess, firearms manufacturers so that you guys are growing together? And I know there's always going to be a, hey, I'm here, now you got to get there, and vice versa.
Right.
But how do you do that so one of you doesn't, I guess, run away and leave the other in the dust?
Yep. Well, there's certainly examples where a firearm or an ammunition manufacturer do that. And unfortunately, a lot of times those products they don't die off, but they don't do super well because people forget to care because you outran us, right? So it's hyper important that you work within the industry. And largely that comes down to that ballistic development group that I was talking about, having connections throughout the industry, from the military and the law enforcement to commercial side. We have to be connected everywhere, and you have to rely on those relationships. The biggest thing, there's a lot of things in life that come down to this, but it's about trust. You have to trust the people that you're working with at these companies, these endemic companies, that they're not going to take that idea and go to a different manufacturer or this, that, and the other thing. You got to have some trust in there. And we have a great relationship with countless, dozens of companies within the industry, from, the firearm itself, receiver makers, barrel makers, all of the auxiliary equipment that goes into it, like magazines and bottom metals and optics, you name it. We have a huge spreadsheet of every time we're coming out, we're working on something new that other people need to be involved in. We go through alphabetically and reach out to every single one of those companies that we have a relationship with. And we're always looking for more, but we reach out to them. We tell them what we're doing. And if they want to be on board, we'll help them get on board. And so that's why when you see products launch like the 6mm ARC or the 22 ARC or the 7 PRC, the day we announce it, we've already got 24 gun builders ready to produce products because we involve them early, we involve them often, and it's really critical when you're in the innovative space that we are.
Before we move on, I want to touch real quick on 6 ARC.
Mhm.
Because I'm fairly ignorant to it, except for the last 2 weeks I've been shooting a little longer distance, and one of my friends that I usually shoot with came with his 6 ARC build, and I can admittedly say, like, I've never shot an AR-15 1,000 yards before, and this thing is doing it. And we're talking like BLM land in Idaho in the wintertime. So there's wind. We have a lot of elevation change, and consistently on a 66% steel target at a G, we were smacking with a 16-inch AR-15, and it blew my mind.
Right.
So tell us a little bit, I guess, on how that round came to be, and well, I guess I told everybody what it's used for, but
Yeah.
the use case of why
Yeah.
that came around.
So the 6mm ARC was born because of a great relationship that we have with a really notable group within the DoD that they've specifically asked us that we not name them in conversations like this and any of our marketing stuff. But this
Understood.
very notable group we have a great relationship with. Now, historically, the military would come to a manufacturer and say, here's our problem. Here's how we want it solved. Build this product. And that really pigeonholes you. Yeah, we could get the contract to make the ammo, but that doesn't really solve anything because they are in an echo chamber, right? They own, just like we all are. We're experts in our own opinion. And sometimes you overlook things. Well, because we have such a good relationship with this group and they trust us, they came to us and said, here's the problem that we have. How would you solve it? And the problem was the 5.56 platform in the M4 is fantastic. CQB, just general work, it's adequate. But it runs out of snot somewhere in the 400, 500 meter range. So the next evolution, the next product that they have in their arsenal is an AR-10 shooting .308 Winchester. Well, okay, we can stretch out that envelope to 700, 800 meters. But now the gun's heavier, the gun's longer, the ammo is significantly heavier. It just adds more complexity to it. So here's our problem set. We want terminal performance that meets or exceeds .308 Winchester. We want wind deflection and drop numbers that meet or exceed .308 Winchester, but we want it smaller. So Jaden Quinlan, he's our current senior ballistician. Jaden came back to the lab and he said, okay, I'm going to go back out there with this group and I'm going to show them the capabilities of a 6.5 Grendel. And if they like that, we're going to do something even better. And they love the 6.5 Grendel. So Jaden came back and that's what really became the 6mm ARC. We knew we had really efficient 6mm bullets. So they're going to work really well at long range because they're super efficient, but they're light. So it's going to keep the recoil down. And, at close range stuff, they're going to be more than effective for that. And from a trajectory and windage standpoint, it blows the doors off a .308 Winchester, and it does it with a shorter platform, lighter ammo, lighter weapon system. So that became the 6mm ARC. It's a 6.5 Grendel parent. We knock the shoulder back 30 thou to make room for those really long bullets, and we get them out there with consistent muzzle velocity, consistent ignition, great drag characteristics out of the bullet. So that group and many others love the 6mm ARC for that reason. They can put it in a 14.5-inch short little system. They can have DMR guys run it in an 18-inch system. They've got 1,000-yard capability. Hit probability versus 308 is substantially different. It's better, obviously, for the 6mm ARC. And we did that, and then it only made sense. If you're going to have that, it needs to be a commercial product as well, because when it's a commercial product, the rate at which all the other supporting products, magazines, receivers, etc., the list goes on, suppressors, they need to rapidly catch up, and they did. So now you have a wildly successful cartridge in the military law enforcement world, but also a wildly successful cartridge for the commercial shooter as well. The long-range enthusiast, I shoot it in a bolt gun for PRS. It's my go-to varmint cartridge, one of my go-to varmint cartridges for coyotes and things like that. Gas gun, bolt gun. I mean, it's bullets from 80 to 110 grains. They just work really well. And so that's the 6mm ARC in a nutshell.
When precision matters, every detail counts. The Frankfurt Arsenal IntelliDropper 2.0 takes accuracy to the next level with advanced sensors, a sleek touchscreen, and effortless calibration. Whether you're fine-tuning or loading in volume, the IntelliDropper 2.0 ensures confidence in every drop. Frankfurt Arsenal, precision starts here.
So let's switch gears now and talk. We've heard about how well the QC goes with Hornady, and from round to round, with especially with the match stuff, the repeatability is imperative. For those guys that say, yeah, I hear you and I believe you, but I just like doing this myself still. Let's get it. Those guys, because there's quite a big fire community that enjoys reloading, and there's something to be said about making your own rounds.
Yep.
Whether you can do it better or worse than what you think off the shelf ammo is. You know, what makes the lock and load line from Hornady different?
Sure. Well, there are a lot of competitors that make good products in that space as well. So many of them are legacy companies, just like Hornady. You look at like RCBS, for example, goes back long, long time ago. With Hornady and the lock and load system, you get a product that's not imported, which there's, some companies that do, not exclusively, but a lot of imported products. The Hornady lock and load tools are made 6 miles from where I'm sitting in another one of our facilities. The heart of them, though, is the lock and load bushing system, which, if anybody who's ever reloaded and reloaded without it, it's just a convenience thing that makes so much of a difference. Normally, you have to take your die and thread it into the press. And it's a 7/8 14 thread that you're going to thread an inch to an inch and a quarter, sometimes an inch and a half of it into the press. And it's just time consuming. With the lock and load system, it uses a bushing. The teeth lock together, you lock it in place. It doesn't back out. It's repeatable. It's super fast. It's really convenient. So that's the heart of the system. And our reloading tools really go back to Joyce Hornady. When he founded the company, he made bullets because he hand loaded ammunition. So it only made sense that when your primary product that you're selling is for reloaders, that you also have a line of dependable reloading tools to go with it. And so he bought a very popular brand of reloading tools called Pacific. They were out of Lincoln, Nebraska. He bought that company in the 70s, and that became Hornady Reloading Tools as we know it today. And it's going to see more innovation, and it already has started. We've got a general manager in place now that, man, hand loading is his life. And we've released a couple new tools here in the last little bit that have really changed the game, because now, used to be reloading was done largely for accuracy and economic value.
Mm.
You think of like bench rest shooting, for example. You're not really needing super high volumes of accurate ammunition. You shoot a string of 10, let's say. Well, with precision rifle sports, you need huge volumes. You
Yes.
got a 2,000 round barrel life. The shooter expects 0 through 2,000 to get the same steady diet of extremely accurate hand loaded ammunition, right? And so now people want accuracy through volume, or accuracy and volume. Usually those are mutually exclusive, not anymore. So a lot of our tools that we're innovating are precision tools that save you time at the reloading bench. So the lock and load system of tools is designed, like I mentioned, as a system. And there's a lot of great tools out there. A lot of them, you can part and piece stuff together from different manufacturers. But Hornady has a one-stop shop, everything you need to take your reloading experience from the novice to match-winning performance. We've got it all.
Great, great, great.
So, Seth, how much in that reloading system, like how much crossover exists between factory ammo development and the reloading gear? Like, is it designed in mind to like be able to provide a Hornady level cartridge but enroll your own?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you'll get, I think the beauty of hand loading, you will get better ammunition than the factory can make. The only way for us to make that quality of ammunition on the manufacturing floor is to load it by hand. Largely, what controls that is the powder charge.
Right.
In a factory, any ammo manufacturer, you're getting powder that's measured volumetrically. And that's consistent. Obviously, our factory ammo, I've shot our factory ammo to well past a mile, factory 300 PRC. So you can do really good things with that. But when you're loading hand-loaded ammunition, you have the ability to throw powder charges to whatever tolerance you set. So if that tolerance is 1/10 of a grain or 0, you can guarantee that the powder that went in the case is exactly what you want. And powder charge, there's other things, but powder charge really has a lot to do with the consistency of your overall load. So if you're willing to do it, you can really wring out every bit of consistency. The next step that will help with your consistency is we make our brass so it'll fit in every chamber. If you buy .308 Winchester ammo, it's going to fit in every .308 Winchester ever made to SAMI spec. Well, when you hand load, you can take brass that was fire formed to your chamber and size it very minimally So it probably won't chamber in anybody else's gun, but it'll chamber in yours, and it will better match those chamber dimensions, going to help keep your bullet in better center line with the bore axis. You're not going to lose any energy to swelling to fill this huge chamber. You can really control the headspace, which is what you're really after, and that can dial in those loads to be just that much more accurate than a factory load.
That's pretty cool. And I guess to close out our reload segment, I want to ask you a question on what is the most underrated piece of gear you think when it comes to reloading?
I think the most underrated thing that I wish everybody who was reloading for a bottleneck cartridge had is a headspace comparator. So the headspace, from the face of your breech, so your bolt face, to a point in the chamber where your brass contacts on a shouldered case. Now on a belted case, it's the belt, but we're still talking about the same thing. So a point on the shoulder where it meets the front of the chamber. If you control that dimension with your sizing die, you can measure how big was my brass before I fired it? How much did it grow when I fired it? Then you can control how much do you push that shoulder back when you size the case. And that headspace comparator, it's like a $30 or $40, maybe $50 tool if you buy the whole set. It's invaluable. It'll make your brass last longer. And in my opinion, it can really help make your ammo more consistent. You might not necessarily see more consistency in your 100-yard groups, but over the long haul, you will see tighter velocity spreads when you're really controlling your headspace.
That's interesting.
Awesome. Seth, I think it's about that time. I think we're getting pretty close to the end here. So before we wrap up, did you have any closing notes from Hornady? Maybe if folks are not familiar with your products, like something they should go out and try, or any message for new shooters. What wisdom do you have to impart on behalf of Hornady?
I would say I think from everybody here at Hornady, thanks for your support over the years. And if you're new to the sport of shooting, dive in and go shoot. Whether that's jumping out on some BLM and just, banging some steel, getting into long range shooting. If you've got a local club where you could go try 3-gun or 2-gun or bench rest, just go shoot. We've got a military and law enforcement side of our product line, but the hefty majority of stuff that we make is fun. It's one of the things the Hornady say all the time. We want to sell fun. It is fun to shoot. It's fun to compete. It's fun to go hunting. So just get out there and do it. You won't regret it. Get your family involved and train often, practice often, educate yourself and have fun doing it. And you can count on Hornady continuing to innovate. That's how we started our company in 1949. And that's why we're a force in the ammunition and bullet space today, is because of that innovation. So we're going to continue doing it. We're having a heck of a lot of fun out here on the prairie. I can tell you that.
Awesome. All right. Well, time for the final segment. This is my favorite question of the entire show. If you've listened long enough, you know that it's coming. This is more of a Seth question and less of a Hornady question, just to know a little bit more about you as a gun guy. So
Sure.
It's time for top 5 guns. This week's top 5 guns is brought to you by our friends over at EOTech.
Premium performance doesn't have to come with a premium price tag. The Voodoo X series combines trusted EOTech quality with the features shooters rely on most. Adjustable parallax for clarity at any distance, an illuminated reticle for all lighting conditions, and magnification ranges for every scenario. Whether you're chasing big game or ringing steel, this lineup can do it all. The Voodoo X series from EOTech, precision within reach.